Strathmore Plus Uranium is a tiny company that you'll start to hear about more and more from now on. They have a world-class management team in one of my favorite jurisdictions in the US for uranium exploration. And best of all, they're dirt cheap right now. I am a shareholder and also a marketing consultant for the company, so buyer beware. This can be considered sponsored content, even though I've been talking about Strathmore for free to anyone who was willing to hear up until now. Let's dive right into it and get the skinny on what they have right now and why you should care. All right, we are here with Dev Randawa, and he is going to tell us a little bit more about the Strathmore uranium story. Dev, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I mean, Strathmore is a bit of a nostalgic name because when we first started in the business in 1996, it was called Strathmore Minerals, and eventually that company was split into many parts and sold because of success. And so it's a bit of a nostalgic, but we're very happy to be where we are, the name, a great team. So it's very exciting. I'm glad we're here.
How did you get involved in mining and uranium specifically? Because I know that your name, I'm trying like to be, like sort of neutral here, but it's hard for me to do that knowing the history that you have. Your name carries with it a lot of history, and not just history in being in the business, but a lot of success with it as well.
Right.
You've been involved obviously in fission and then, the discovery of the Triple R deposit, et cetera. How did you get started and what have you been able to accomplish so far?
Well, I think the key in all of it was having a great team around you. I was very fortunate that when it started really odd, a friend of mine's in an elevator with two old geologists and says, "Have you thought about uranium?" And I said, "How do we spell it?" But a friend of mine also said, "You should really look at it more carefully." So we did. And then I had, then I chatted with probably the smartest guy in our industry and in its history is Rick Rule. And Rick says, if you can get into this, do it. Because there are not many players in it. In fact, Lucas Landin is thinking of starting a company in it. And I was like, wow, okay. That was a big, we should be in this space. At that time, Lucas was starting a company called International Uranium Corp, and which eventually merged with Denison as we have today. So he said, yeah, he was doing this, but it was a different approach altogether. He was buying some Arizona Strip assets and etc. So, really in life, it's about who you hang out with, and or Woody Allen says 90% is showing up. And so they encouraged me. We started it, and Strathmore Minerals we started buying assets, and I'll be straight up, I don't think they were very good looking back. But we got established with that name. And then obviously when 2005 came and everybody rushed into the uranium business, we had a head start. It was a crazy time. We went from less than 2 million market cap to $500 million. And all it was the price of uranium went from $17 to $140. And the other thing is having some good assets that could go into production. I think right now is a better time to be in uranium than ever. The two significant differences, especially being in the U.S., the Democrats are very pro-nuclear. The Energy Secretary Granholm loves the space before anybody talked about it. Prior to this energy crisis, and as we go through it, people realizing energy is more important than anything else. We've taken it for granted. So first time, nuclear energy is part of the solution to have less carbon footprint on Earth, yet keep the lights on. So that's the biggest difference that I have seen since I got in the business. So I see the fundamentals now stronger than ever. Unfortunately, we have a very bearish overall market because of concerns about inflation and deep concerns. Inflation is a bigger factor, and the higher interest rates, it's slowing down growth. Money is sucking out of the equity markets into the bonds. So that's our problem, but the fundamentals have never been better. And the last time we had a good management team, I think the management team is even better this time. It's leaner, and our market cap is so small, it's insane. So I really think it's just unfortunately the storm is there, but the house is being built. But when the storm goes, people will see it.
Cool. Yes, we'll get into the market cap in due time because that's something that really makes me excited compared to what you guys have.
Right.
Can you tell me briefly about your current projects and what we know so far about them?
Well, we have three projects. Um, we tried to use how does David beat Goliath? It has to be brains, and that's exactly what we did with John DeJoya. John, the you have to keep in mind that the 78% of all uranium ever mined in the States comes from Wyoming. So, and probably John, has taken more uranium out of there, explored and produced probably any other individual alive. And because he's in his 70s, he started in his 20s. So we went with our strength, which is our mind. And so he had different ideas when I talked to him last year. And then we brought on a young man in Terrence to execute. So we have three projects. The one that captures most people's imagination is the high grade night owl. Most of the time when you mine, you find a project, you fly it from the air. If you like what you see anomalies, you go down, do some trenching and stuff. Well, here, all they did was fly and saw the high grade. And the Atomic Energy Commission at the time just needed uranium. So they just started digging holes and mined it. Never bothered putting any drill holes down, any seismic, 3D seismic, none of that stuff that we use up in Canada. So Night Owl, we've just finally broken the rock of this large boulder. We sent it off to the lab, so we get some assays back. So it's a very cool project. An analyst kind of said it's like a breccia pipe, but is laying pretty well horizontal. I've been to the property, and it's like white rock sticking everywhere, and then amazing numbers came out. You have to remember the grades in the U.S. are very different than Canada. Canada, we have percentages. So if you can get past 0.1, 0.2, you've got a high grade. The highest grade is running around 0.5 to 1% in the Arizona pipes. So this has grade, access. Not that far from there, there's going to be, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are building reactors. So they're the first small reactor being built will be in Wyoming. So we're in the right place with the right guy. Night Owl was a great start, really good start. The other two projects are ISL types. The Beaver Rim is next to a permitted mine called Cameco has. They just stopped drilling, and John was there. They just stopped drilling. So we got enough rain, let's go to production. But they never probably finishing the rest because they've drilled it, and we're in the process of getting the data. So that's Beaver Rim next to Cameco. And then another project is right next door to UEC. It's the advantage here is that we have over 500 drill holes given to us. Kerr-McGee was a chemical of its time. Like it was monstrous. And they're very sharp people. So what happened is we've got this land right now. We're hopefully with the help of the university putting together all the data, find out how many pounds we have, how do we increase it, and then what are the steps between here and production. We estimated there were 5 years to production, but there are a lot of steps in between that we have to go through. So 3 projects on their own, I think, could build a company. Well, we have 3 of them, and it's all because John thought of them, and he's got a huge library. He's a very thorough man. Here, I'll give you an example. This is his idea of gathering information that I've been doing.
Old school.
It's insane. John is a super bright guy, and he's doing stuff in his head. And he said, guys, there's uranium here. People haven't been paying attention. The advantage of a bear market, if you've got some cash, you can pick up assets very cheap. Rather than spending millions of dollars, you can spend 20,000 and get a project. Mm-hmm. If people aren't aware, and that's the key. When people start a junior company, the first thing I ask is not what the project is, blah, blah, blah. I ask who the person is, the management team, and what commodity. And I don't, because we won every award possible, Mining Person of Canada, Prospector of the Year, Deal Maker of the Year, we won every award possible. If there was an Oscars for uranium, we won it all. We swept them. You got to have good management, but you got to have good projects, and the wind has to be behind you. The wind is there. I think it'll get better once we, these inflation issues and stuff settle down.
Right. So let's talk about Night Owl just briefly, because that is essentially a former mine. And I'm assuming if they were willing and able to just go down there and not drill it and just, mine it straight away, I'm assuming that the grades were quite decent for, what it looked like at the time. Have you been able to fetch the ground that actually belonged to the mine,
Yep.
or is it adjacent to it? Tell me a little bit more about the
We-
area.
No, we actually, we staked the actual area. It's up on imagine rolling hills, and right at the top, imagine this breccia pipe. And I've been on the property. I've tested it myself with the so many counts per second we get with a scintillometer. We have the actual property. We've seen where the head grade was. We're doing a drone right now over the whole area to find out if there's other pipes. It's up top, and the land we want is on top. There's some private land, but most of the farmers there want to be down by the river where the water is. It's not like we're competing with them. Again, Wyoming you can't beat Wyoming as a place to be in mining in general, but uranium mining, I love it. So Night Owl sits up there. It's high grade. We've taken samples from the main area. It's a very large boulder. We had to take a special hydronic sledgehammer up there and pound down. I was down a couple of weekends ago. We got the samples. They've gone down, I think, last week. So in the next week or two, hopefully we can get results back. That will tell us what we have. But we believe there's a lot more potential in the area, because I'm not a geologist, but I see white rock here and high grade, and I see it around. We want to find out. So we're flying the whole area to find out if there's other breccia pipes in the area. So that's our goal there. Find out what we have, buy more land, and then start working towards. At the end of the day, you want to figure out how many pounds you have and what's it going to cost to get it out. That's our next steps.
Cool. So when people start to invest in any sort of commodity, especially in uranium, they have to understand the sort of cycle that the project needs to go through in order to actually get to production or to be an interesting buyout project.
Right.
Where is Strathmore right now with its projects? I mean, how early is this in comparison, to where we need to be in order to be a project that's worth looking at for, whether that's production or a takeout?
Sure. Well, I believe, and talking to John, we're 5 years out from going to production on a GAT. With all the drill holes we have and the amount of pounds next door, we know that we've got enough to go into production. The question is how much, and that's our steps right now. We're trying to figure out what we have in each of these properties. In the US, it's not as easy as Canada. In Canada, if you do work, you have to file with the government, otherwise, every year. They don't have to do that in the States. That's why a GAT is really exciting to us, because we got all these drill holes. So we're going to figure out what we have. John's produced there before. That would be for ISL. On the breccia pipe, we need to figure out how many. On both properties, we have to figure out what we have, how do we grow it, and then eventually, obviously, we have people who put mines in production, and that will be our goal. The idea when you're a junior is that you want to be like in a relay. Someone comes along, passes the baton. That's the role of juniors, is to move towards production. So if you have to do it, you can do it. If somebody else comes along and wants to do it, let them. Obviously, having giants in the area help. Whether it's Cameco, UEX, Energy Fuels, Encore, and they're all great guys, Amir and Paul, and I know them all. And at the end of the day, I believe we'll have ideas to have a pipeline of projects to go into production, right? That's what we're trying to do. The great news is having great management like John DeJoya, who's done it before. He knows every step. Remember, he mined probably 25% of all the uranium ever come out of Shirley Basin. Who the heck can say that? Luckily, John is in his 70s and started as a kid in his 20s. He lived there and breathed it. Again, the number one thing for any junior company is management. We've been able to raise a lot of money. I've been able to go to Japan and get Sumitomo to the table for Strathmore. Korean Electric Power Company came to the table and wrote checks for our Waterbury project. They funded it. And then, as you know, CGN, the only time the Chinese government's ever invested in a mining project in Canada, we were it. You know, I had to go to Hong Kong myself 3 days before Christmas to cut that deal and have a check 30 days later. So we know how to access capital. But at the end of the day, you know, you got to be in the right jurisdiction with a great project. And I think all three projects are fabulous, but, you know, there are different challenges with each. You know, no one's going to hand you a mine. So here's a free mine, go mine it. So every project has its hair. A GAT, we've got one breccia pipe. I want to see how many more we have. With a GAT, we want to find out how many pounds and how do we grow it? Because each, you know, remember the ISL is not about grade. It's about how well the water moves through the wells. And so those are we've acquired the properties. Now our next step is to find out what we have on each of them, grow them. So do exactly what you said, you sell it, or, you know, for us, we're going to start filing all the permits we need to do you have to move to production at the end of the day. That's what the US needs. The US needs production. I don't know if you know, but they used to have 40 million pounds of production and needed 4 like this. Now they need 50 million pounds and produce 9.
Absolutely. And I see a lot of things changing in the US regarding, well, the fact that nuclear is now something that's backed by both Democrats and Republicans, which is something I have not seen in a very long time regarding anything, especially energy. It's quite positively shocking that both sides of the aisle are agreeing that we need more nuclear, or that they need more nuclear, and that they should actually keep more of it in-house, so to speak, right? And speaking about that, regarding what's currently happening in the US and Wyoming, I mean, what is it like to do business in Wyoming for uranium, and what's permitting like?
Well, it's the utopia for in the US, that's it. And the record speaks for itself. 78% of all uranium ever mined has come from that area. You know, I think New Mexico's okay, but the problem is the huge pushback from the coal lobby through the Navajos. They somehow think it's okay to have a coal mine on your project, but hey, let's not have nuclear. And the problem with Texas, often there's too many royalties sitting on surface from oil, makes it too expensive. So that's why, you know, to me, Wyoming is the place to be. Remember, there's only 600,000 people living in the entire state. You know, and so but again, it's had the people are pro. They've got universities that are focused on, you know, they've actually got divisions, uranium mining. So, you know, we've thought of, you know, involving them because the Night Owl is so unique. It's a breccia pipe in Wyoming rather than Arizona, and it lays flat. The grades are high. So it's just, it's done it before. It will do. As why is Saskatchewan, you know, the best place in Canada? You know, they've had lots of years, you know, 60 odd years of uranium mining, you know, whereas Quebec and British Columbia have ripped assets out of people's hands in those places. But Saskatchewan's great. I wouldn't want to be in any other place in the States, you know. And in fact, if you really want to do your homework, go back on all these projects people are talking about and ask how many permits have they got in the last 10 years. And I think it's because people still don't understand, you know, what goes on in these places. But Wyoming, you know, they've actually got university divisions that talked about uranium, and it's you know, and they're good people. They work hard. You know, that's why Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, say what you want about Bill Gates and the port, but Bill Gates and Warren Buffett This is where they're building a nuclear plant. There's a coal mine there, coal town, and they're depleted all the resources, and so now they're putting a nuclear plant in. What a genius idea, you know?
Yeah, I heard that the counties were actually fighting over who was going to get it because people there are in general very pro-nuclear.
The fundamentals have never been better for uranium. Back a team that's got lots of experience in finding assets, finding money, and then doing deals. Like, you know, that's what we have experience at. And we have a good team around us, Red Cloud, and they have Dave Talbot, which I think is the best analyst out there. He's seen the project and he said it looks like a beautiful breccia pipe. You know, we are very, like I said, it comes down to a good team with a good asset in the right environment. And I believe when these interest rates stop going up and we start to see it, we'll have people will feel a little more assured about the big markets, and I think that money will flow down. If you look at it, what happened last year, Sprott Physical Fund, when the markets were phenomenal, money poured into that fund, and they took that money and bought all physical and got rid of this overhead we've had. You know, we've had this dripping uranium from different sources. They sucked all that out. So once we start to see more money coming into SPUT, that's going to show up and take that. But you know, getting to the last point is that, you know, we have a very small market cap of less than 7 million, and so when this money starts to pour in, you know, when you've got no supply of stock and it comes in, it'd be easy to see our stock double or triple from here. But we need better markets. We need to move our projects along. But I do believe that investors should be buying these uranium stocks. I mean, you know, some of these stocks are, when the uranium was $30 and the stocks were here, now uranium's at 50 and the stocks are still here, and people have all this fear. They're lumping in uranium stocks with every commodity, which is absolutely ridiculous. But there's the opportunity for investors. You know, but until January, the stocks was going along with the commodity price. Now is a complete, you know, the markets, the uranium fundamentally gone this way, but the stocks have gone this way. So it's a great timing for investors to buy stuff that, you know, the uranium price stock, all these stocks should be at least double where they are. If you said, if the commodity's worth this, the stock's worth this. Well, that's not what we have. You know, the commodity's gone up 67% and these stocks are sitting there like nothing has happened, which is insane. But, you know, stock markets, despite what they teach us in MBA classes, is the perfect hypothesis theory does not work. It's all the information right now. Reality is fear is greater than common sense in these markets. And that's why what you're doing, other people are doing, is trying to educate investors and going, hey, wake up. There's great opportunities here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point. We buy what's cheap and that's how we make money, right? Because if you're buying into a story that everybody else knows, then there's very little money to be made. And this is why I'm so happy to have you on here to be able to talk about Strathmore so openly. Thank you so much, Dev. Any parting words? Where can people find more about you? In fact, the company itself had a slight name change recently, right? So right now it's Strathmore Plus Uranium.
Yeah, our friends at Red Cloud says you got to have uranium in the name, and I said, okay. But no, I think at the end of the day, all investors should always look at is, number one, what sector are you in? Number two, if you're looking at, you know, they should own a little chemical, yeah, but if they want to buy an exploration company, it's got to be management. I've seen so many good projects destroyed by shitty management. I've seen good management find other projects, attract capital based on track record. And, you know, and the nice thing about this is not really exploration. You know, it's not, because we know the pounds are there. Strathmore actually owned some of these projects before, and Terrence has actually drilled some of these projects. So we know the uranium is, these aren't really exploration projects. We're really trying to figure out in all three projects, how much do we have? Okay. And that's the whole point, is we're not exploring for uranium. We know it's there. We got 500 drill holes to show it, but you got to put those together. So it's not really an exploration company, more of a development company. The question is to find out what we have and what we can, move forward with. But yeah, I encourage investors to buy uranium stocks, but buy companies that have actually built something, made a discovery. Not only have they used their minds to stake something, explore, find it, and actually sell the company. As one of the things that drives me crazy, hearing other CEOs talk about, oh, we're going to build it and sell it, and going, well, have you done this before? No, you haven't. So you don't know. And it's one of the dumbest strategies I've ever heard. Oh, we're going to build it, someone will buy it. No. I believe you always hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. Meaning, if you had to take it right to production, you got to get ready for that. But we have a guy named John DeJoya who's actually mined before. And he may not be the guy in the ground, but he'll say, okay, we got to get these steps done. So management, management, management.
Well, we have the same investment thesis, so I must be onto something. Thank you so much, Dev. We'll be on the lookout for those results coming out hopefully shortly, and then we'll probably have you back on to talk about those. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Strathmore Plus Uranium is SUU in Canada, SUUFF on the OTC in the US, and TO3 in Frankfurt.